Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a stock that recently announced earnings for the first quarter of 2023, and that stock is AMD. And we can see over last year, AMD is up 10%, while the rest of the market is up around 2 to 3%. So they are outperforming the market over the last year. And so in this video, I'm just going to look into a recent article that came out talking about some news that came out surrounding AMD. I'm going to look at their financial statements and then use a discounted cash flow model to figure out the intrinsic value per share so we could know if this is a good price to buy into AMD from a value investing perspective. And so right here in this article, it's titled 3 Things About AMD That Smart Investors Know. For starters, some key points here that they touch on include the fact that AMD is being supported by one of the biggest names in AI. The company is home to a diverse business of AI, gaming, and the cloud markets, and AMD could potentially be far better value than their main competitor, NVIDIA. So right here, they point out that AMD stock is up 82% since the start of the year to date, and they are experiencing a boost right now from Microsoft. So obviously the AI sector has been growing for years, but the current boom is primarily due to OpenAI's ChatGPT, which was released in November. And ChatGPT's primary chip supplier is NVIDIA, and that stock has skyrocketed 170% year to date. However, a recent collaboration with Microsoft could grant AMD everything they need to become a true rival to NVIDIA in AI in the not so distant future. Basically, Microsoft partnered with AMD, and they're trying to provide them with financial and engineering resources to give them an upper hand. Microsoft is obviously the biggest investor in OpenAI, so this partnership might be exactly what AMD needs in order to surpass their competition. Also, the second point they touch on here is that AMD has a diversified revenue stream. In addition to AI, their chips can be found powering a variety of devices and platforms from game consoles to PCs and cloud services. Right here, they touch on the fact that AMD's processing and graphics power can be found in Sony's PlayStation as well as Microsoft's Xbox. And then also from these partnerships, that part of their business, their gaming segment in fiscal year 2022 rose 21% to $6.8 billion as demand for gaming consoles soared. Then right here, they point out that the cloud market is expanding, and AMD has a bunch of really big names in their client list for their cloud segment. They boast Microsoft Azure, Alphabet, Google Cloud, and Oracle. So they do have some pretty diversified revenue there. And lastly, this part of the article is called AMD's cheaper alternative to NVIDIA. And it could be because, as I point out right here, when you're comparing their price to free cash flow ratios, AMD has a 77 times free cash flow ratio compared to NVIDIA's 195 times free cash flow. So basically AMD could be priced a little bit cheaper than NVIDIA at the moment based on their price to free cash flow metrics. All in all, their stock has risen 3,000% over the last decade, which is an astronomical return for shareholders. This is not even including a dividend. They don't pay a dividend, obviously, so it's very impressive. And so we'll see if they'll be able to continue this momentum moving forward. So right here, these are their financial statements. I'm going to look at their income statement, their balance sheet, and their cash flow statement. For starters, we can see their revenue declined year over year from $5.8 billion to $5.3 billion, so it's down around 9%. And then also they experienced a net loss in the first quarter of 2023. Year over year, the results are down from $786 million of net income to $139 million net loss. So that's a decline of 118% year over year for AMD. Then right here, we can see their balance sheet comparing December 31st to April 1st. Total assets pretty much stayed the same at $67 billion. And we can see total equity came out to be $54 billion. And so of that, they have accumulated deficit of $270 million, which is worse than their accumulated deficit of $131 million in December. So they don't have retained earnings, but luckily for AMD, they don't really pay out a dividend anyway. So I guess they don't really need it right now. They're just prioritizing growing their company. And then lastly, for their cash flow statement, we can see that for their operating activities, from the first quarter of 2022 to 2023, operating cash flow declined from about $1 billion to $430 million. And then we can see they didn't pay out a dividend, but they did repurchase common stock of $240 million in the first quarter of 2023, which is down from about $2 billion of repurchased common stock in the first quarter of 2022. So they're definitely not prioritizing returning value back to shareholders in 2023 as much as they were in 2022. Then right here, this is a discounted cash flow model to figure out the intrinsic value per share for AMD. Yahoo Finance is estimating that the company is going to grow at around 9% for the next 5 years. They have free cash flow of around $3.12 billion. They have net cash on their balance sheet of around $3 billion and around 1.6 billion shares outstanding. That puts their estimated intrinsic value per share at $30 per share, which means that at the current share price, they are currently not trading below intrinsic value per share based on those Yahoo Finance estimates, because they're currently trading at $117 per share, not $30 per share. I also compared them to Intel and NVIDIA in their industry. We can see that from a financial ratio perspective, NVIDIA definitely has the best profit margins. They have the highest at 56% compared to AMD's 36%. And AMD has the lowest profit margins with 5% and 3% net profit and return on assets, whereas NVIDIA has the highest at 16% and 10% net profit and return on assets. Price to earnings ratio, we can see that AMD is priced at 500 times earnings, whereas NVIDIA is priced at 200 times earnings. Obviously, the article pointed out their price to cash flow ratio, but price to earnings ratio is a little bit different. And then to end off the analysis here, we can see in terms of dividends, AMD doesn't pay a dividend. NVIDIA pays a very small dividend, but it is better than nothing. They pay around 8 cents for every $100 that you invest into NVIDIA. Intel has the highest dividend at around $5 for every $100 you invest. So pretty interesting. I would say if you're comparing them based on profit margins, you probably want to give it to NVIDIA. Based on dividend, you'd want to give it to Intel. AMD is sort of being dominated from a financial ratio perspective, as we can see right here. And then to end off the video, I want to compare them to other companies we've already looked at in past videos. AMD was not able to make it onto the share price compared to intrinsic value table here because they're trading at like 3 to 4 times their estimated intrinsic value per share. So that's not good enough to get them onto the table, being that the 10th place spot is around 2 times intrinsic value. We can see that Google, GE, and ConocoPhillips are still the only companies that we've looked at that are trading below their intrinsic value per share. And these are the top 10 companies from the last 20 to 30 videos. In terms of growth rate, we can see AMD has a growth rate estimate of around 8%. That is good enough to get them into the 10th place spot here on the table. Chipotle holds the #1 spot at 26%. For profitability, AMD had pretty bad profitability ratios, 36% and 5% net profit. So not good enough to get them onto either table. Adobe and Microsoft hold the #1 spots for gross and net profit. And then for their stock performance, AMD takes the 2nd place spot over the last 5 years. They have almost a 700% return over the last 5 years. And the article pointed out that they actually have like a 3,000% return over the last decade. So they've been absolutely killing it. And we can see that's why they're in 2nd place right here. Only stock we've looked at that had a better return over the last 5 years than AMD is Tesla at a 1,000% return. So interesting to see. It looks like in terms of stock return and growth rate, AMD is competitive to the other companies we've looked at, but in terms of profitability and share price to intrinsic value, they are not. We can see that compared to their competitors, from a financial ratio perspective alone, obviously it's not fully encompassing, but if we were only going to focus on that, it looks like they're pretty much getting dominated on the dividend front by Intel and on the profit margin front by NVIDIA. And the discounted cash flow model showed, as I said before, that they are not trading below intrinsic value. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of AMD. This stock has been killing it year to date so far. Up 40% over the last 3 months, 30% over the last month, down 9% this week. Let me know what you guys think of AMD, if you guys own any shares of it. And also leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see everyone in the next one.